point that I've made for a long time, whether it comes to disadvantaged Indigenous people in communities or across the pond to America, you know, you look at the sort of systemic violence in black communities, etc. I find left-wing activists love to go on about how this is a result of racism, systemic racism, etc. I've always said that actually it's economic class that is the issue here. What's your take on that?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I've been saying this for nearly 30 years. Racism is not the big culprit affecting Aboriginal people, and you know, probably in America as well with the blacks, but definitely here in Australia, racism is not the big problem. But we love to talk about it. It's so convenient to talk about it. It scores points, but it's not the big problem. It's, you know, the reality is we've basically got Aboriginal people hurting Aboriginal people. Aboriginal people causing harm to Aboriginal people. It's not white fellas coming in and hurting them. And just if I can just go on a tangential point there.
Yeah, go for it.
You know, with the dialogue of racism, I see the Northern Territory Police are under the spotlight at present, you know, for claims of racism, and I'm all for cleaning that out. No, I have no qualms about that. Do it. However, don't think that if you rid the Northern Territory Police Force of racism, that's going to make any difference to the crime rate, because, again, racism is not the big problem affecting Aboriginal people. You know, it's largely Aboriginal people hurting Aboriginal people.
And it's the, I'd say sort of the willingness of successive governments to turn a blind eye to this and just allow it to continue. It becomes like a self-perpetuating cycle, doesn't it?
Absolutely. And look, I think one of the people who summed it up so well about a decade ago, Stan Grant, love him or loathe him, he made the point very clearly that, you know, it's okay for us city people to want to keep Aboriginal people in these places so that we can say, oh, look at the Aboriginal man on the land and that sort of thing. But the reality is, in many of these communities, we have to ask some tough questions. Are they sustainable? And if not, we have to make that tough decision of relocating them.
Yes, because this would guess me, no other race or ethnicity in Australia would be allowed to just exist in, you know, squalid, violent conditions without being moved on or helped by the authorities. Why do we allow our Indigenous people to just live in those conditions as if it's okay?
Yeah, because some people have this romanticised view, and others are promoting this romanticised view of the Aborigine on the land, and it's, with few exceptions, it just doesn't happen. And, you know, what I find interesting, typically, not always, but typically those Indigenous people with the loudest voices have benefited from a Anglo-Saxon westernised education, if you like, and have themselves good jobs, and so they should. But, you know, they're speaking from a position of, I wouldn't say privilege, but opportunity that they are well and truly entitled to. And people like you and I and Jacinta and Warren and others are just saying we want the Aboriginal people in the bush, in the remote areas, to have the same opportunities we've got. Now, I know that the government are talking about investing $450 million in housing in the Northern Territory remote communities. I mean, if you're going to need a lot more than that. If it's sustainable, if it works, great. But I think it's going to be really, really hard. You know, we're in the 21st century. You do need to be near the urban centres. And I'm not saying people have to live in concrete jungles, but just need to be in locations where there's a good school, where there's a gym, where there's a medical service and that sort of thing.